Greetings, family. Welcome to Culture as Medicine. A big shout out to those returning. Thank you for your support. In today's episode, we are celebrating and exploring, right, the topic that's at the heart of every thriving nation, the role of women in building a nation. I'm Ade Tutu Amushan, and today we'll dive into the powerful contributions of women throughout history, their impact today, and the work we still must do. But before we get started, I would like to give recognition to a milestone that recently took place last week. Um, and that is the pardon of the Honorable Marcus Messiah Garvey Bashe. Honor and respect to Baba Garvey. If you don't know about the great medicine of Garveyism, let me give you a snippet. Um, Garvey believed wholeheartedly African for the Africans, at home and abroad. His message of oneness ultimately made him a victim of COINTELPRO, a CIA-led mission. Stories for other days. He was a Black nationalist and gave the most perfect blueprint of building a nation through liberation from colonialism. And this liberation would serve as a catalyst for communities to be self sufficient, ultimately allowing the freedom to love yourself, love the Black skin that you're in, and normalize this show of love for your people, for all African people all over the world. However, him being jailed and exiled intentionally, I believe, halted the spread of this healing from reaching the hearts and minds of African people across the globe. Pan Africanism, right? Yes. There is an album by Jadena, and the name of the album, I believe, is his latest album. I don't know last, but his latest album, and it's called 85 to Africa. There's a song that I'm about to reference that is title Worth the Wait, and Jadena and Sheun Kuti collaborated in the song, and Sheun had a message at the end of that track that highlighted this pathway to Pan Africanism today. So, fire track. Sheun is the son of Fela Anikilapo, which means one who carries death in their pocket, which is suggesting the power and ability to transform even the most tumultuous times into favor. Fela Kuti is very famous for his musical genius and his many messages in his songs that shine a light on like social issues, right? That is inspired to uh, evoke and this uprising and awareness of the influence that colonialism have, and still it still does have it have and had on African culture. Um, One of my favorite songs of Fela's is titled "Lady," right? And he's in this song. He's illustrating, this kind of downgrade of uh of women's the attitude, right? She go say, I be lady, yo. And he's going on in this song about this, giving these examples through the things that she's saying. She gonna say she equal to man. She gonna say anything men do himself him do. you know she wants a piece of meat before anybody. What I mean? He's like really describing this shift in attitudes of women in society based on this arrival of colonialism, inserted into African culture. And um how destructive it is and diminishing of, destroying of the relationships between men and women is very obvious in his description in the song. And because it does inevitably dilapidate communities and families, right? This insertion of this impression as somebody else's idea about how you should conduct yourself, how you should view the world, right? Fela is the son of the very famous Fumilayo Ransome-Kuti, whose extraordinary leadership led women in this uniting of this sisterhood, right? She united sisters to go and change policies, right? About these taxes that they were putting on families, right? She gathered them, they went, and they won, right? Abiyakuta, Nigeria, circa 1940, right? Although, sadly, I think her victory really cost her life in the long run. I don't know, you know, but this too, I believe we can blame on the colonizer. So, with that, let's dive on in. Okay, inside of culture, spirituality, we know this. All spiritual people believe in matriarchy, and women have the natural capacity to balance both feminine and masculine aspects. We all do, but women have this more, this relationship with this divine. Feminine, right? That makes it much easier than our male counterpart. Um, which it doesn't mean that males can't do it well. It just comes easier for women than it does for men, right? When women are balanced, approaching life in a balanced state, right? We provide purification, and purification plays a big role in nurturing, which is the power of a woman, right there, or the power of divine femininity. When you think about Yemoja, Yemoja is this mother who is able to feed, everybody and still have more to give, right? Or um, the Mami Wata. These aspects of these divine feminine women who or divine femininity in an aspect, either Orisha or you know um, um, some form of nature, right? Is referenced in some form of nature, where women are, the power of a woman to provide this nurturing and to feed and to continue to feed, without losing anything. That's why when you see pictures of Yemaja, you see her full, like she's just round. You know what I mean? And it's interesting because some of her children have the same kind of fullness and roundness, right? But anyway, there's an Odu by the name of Oshetura, and it talks about the power of a woman, and the woman's birthright, right? That sort of having this birthright and ability to turn a man into a king or a beggar. So as you can see, there's a magnitude. You can see that the magnitude of a woman, it can be intimidating to men. And it can also be destructive to women who find it difficult to balance both the male and the female aspects inside of themselves. Sort of causing this expression of feminization of men, or the disdain for women. Patriarchy strikes again. So you can see many examples of this imbalance. It's all around the globe. Everything depends on the woman because the gift of womanhood gives rights to emotional intelligence, which makes the woman the most capable leader on the planet. Hands down. Think about the components of leadership: ethics, the intelligence of conflict resolution, right? Because knowing when to retreat and when to fight aids in peaceful resolve or battles won. Think about it, right? The integrity, the wherewithal to say what you mean and mean what you say. This is a showing of high moral standards. And what about the easy access to self awareness, right? Which is the conduit for intuition. When there's harmony of both masculine and feminine principles online, intuition is turned on, and we're able to tap into sacred wisdom, which is our ability to feel um, and clearly, right, receive messages from our ancestors. I think it's safe to say until you know a woman, you will never know life. Because women are life bringers, creators, which makes sense that the foundations of our cultures are rooted in this divine feminine aspect. This is why it was easy for matriarchy to be our first teacher in the earliest of times before patriarchy. Divine femininity was our first reference to creation from queens like um, the real Cleopatra and the real Medusa and Queen Khalifa, California's namesake, real warriors, Moremi, Fumilayo Ransom Kuti, mother of the world famous Fela Kuti, who the women's liberation movement loved to wrap around their mission, which, in my opinion, had little to do with indigenous women and our relationship with our men, but very much about white women and their relationship with their men as it relates to patriarchy. Because while we share the same plight against the oppression of patriarchy, in the long run, it affected our homes in a very different way, right? Which really held a far greater path to destruction in our homes than it had on inequality of voting and equal pay on jobs. Many of our men have the spirit of patriarchy in their bloodline. So our struggle with patriarchy came through the vehicle of patriarchy, the systematic oppression from colonialism. And free fighters like freedom fighters like Harriet Tubman and the Haitian Queen Victoria Montu, aka Mama Toya, who fought next to Jean-Jacques Dessalines in the Haitian Revolution, which actually bled into the US, but those are stories for other days. But there were many women who revolutionized freedom and liberation across the globe. Matriarchy, it normalized revolutionary thinking. You can see this through women historically governing economies, law, spirituality, at the same time governing family and foreign affairs. Some of these matriarchal societies still exist today, but it's slowly dying because of this grandiose illusion of inclusion that demands the tremendous sacrifice of the authentic self, which is diabolical in this low vibrational um, energy that we live in today, where to survive it actually depends heavily on your ability to tap into the self, which should come easy to women, right? But if only if we know our power. So women have played a pivotal role in shaping nations. Women have led movements, pioneered advancements in science and technology, and fought for freedom and equality, even in times when society underestimated the potential of a woman. But the truth is, once patriarchy came onto the scene, the contributions of women became less and less recognized. And despite the challenges women faced, women were still able to persevere and lay the groundwork for the progress we see today. Patriarchy, which came at the helms of colonialism, grew into a system, right, which inevitably increased the power and control men have all over the world. But in order to do it, it had to make divine femininity unfashionable. So today we can see this imbalance of both masculine and feminine aspects. And in order to achieve higher levels of consciousness, there must be balance between the feminine and the masculine aspects of the self. This sort of toxic masculinity that was born from patriarchy was really introduced to individuality, right? Violence, as well as this dominant approach that has um, over time been normalized, really. Think about the aspects of patriarchy. When described, it's a system, or I should say, rather, um, patriarchy as defined, in this, um, it's this system that elevates the status of men in relation to women. And when you hear scholars describe patriarchy, they usually discuss it in two terms: misogyny and benevolent, right? Both were carried through the veins of European empires, though, and passed down to the world through patriarchy. European history, the Western world, as it's so famously called, uh, devalue the gender of their women, all women, really. And the historical facts tell us that the mindset of this anti-woman thought mind frame is a cultural norm, right? Um, there are literally stories giving reference to the fact that European men they really did not like their women. Uh, or any woman, right? Misogyny is them seeing women as mistrustful and having the need to be controlled, whereas the benevolent expression of patriarchy is more prevalent, I think, in my opinion, in indigenous men, with this idea of controlling women due to the need to protect them, ultimately seeing women as more delicate, weak, right? But no matter the expression of patriarchy, it contradicts the principles of African and indigenous spirituality that were practiced by our ancient ancestors. They left us the blueprint um, of what it looks like to master both aspects and over time, right? In doing so, everyone takes their rightful place in the world: man, woman, and child. And we see examples of this in the principles of nourishment, like Ma, which has this ancient translation meaning mother. So now let's fast forward to today and the role of women in nation building. Women are mostly at the forefront of politics with the hope of driving change, right, in policies that could possibly raise up entire communities. Women are leading in business, creating jobs and innovation, and standing strong in activism, championing human rights, right, education, and environmental sustainability. Unfortunately, their growth is usually stunted by this system of patriarchy. It is high fashion to silence success of women, especially in the areas of spirituality, as this could definitely disrupt the effects, the efforts really of patriarchy, and stabilize relations in our families and our communities, and repair the damage we see across the globe. So today, it is most encouraged for women, and I'm going to keep it light, to show off their bedroom skills, normalizing some show of indecency, or only being able to achieve respect by doing what men do, right? This says a lot, right? This is what patriarchy has had, the effect that patriarchy has had on us as a whole, but as a whole, right? But down goes Fraser. The tide has changed. And now we have this uncomfortable truth before us all. We have the task of merging and balancing both feminine and masculine aspects. Matriarchy has its rule. And we found that emotions, right? Those emotions that women have, they can compromise important decisions, which, you know, that matters, right? Those decisions could be far more fierce than and destructive than any man could ever imagine. And today we know the oppressive effects patriarchy has on the world. It's ever so present in the state of our nations around the globe. So it is time to harmonize with that knowing and act in the ways of our ancient teachings. But this time we need to take our lessons learned and fit it inside of a meaningful and productive framework that works for everybody. Education. That is one of the most powerful tools of nation building, and women have been torchbearers in this field for forever. Not just as educators, though, but as advocates for universal education. This is true. You know what I mean? And when you think about universal education, this is the true form of education, right? It's not that rote learning stuff, right? Learning by memory or repeating information. That is only a sufficient approach if for linear thinkers, right? Not someone who thinks holistically, right? It's more fit for this reptilian circuit of the brain, right? This very primal part of the brain that sits at the brain stem. That's just one notch, right? It's wired for mating and safety and defense. Very, very basic. Or that of the insect aspect of the function of the brain, that the medulla, right? Um, that aspect that has no emotional, no bonding, no sense of self, right? Or is mainly the sense of self is made up of what the group says is okay, right? This group consensus. All right, we live in this world. We live in this world right now. This is the norm right now. No authenticity. Or how about the part of the brain that functions like a bird, right? The intellectual circuit. Think of our dogmatic brothers and sisters that approach learning new information with a closed mind, right? Saying if it can't be proven in a book, it can't be right. Even though when searching for truth, our investigation is insufficient if it's not paired with knowledge from the inside out, right? We have to use both the inside of ourselves and the outside of ourselves to measure truth for ourselves. So, this lack of authenticity leads us to no interaction with the intuitive part of our brain, the cerebellum, right? But when we reach the emotional functions of our brain, where the energy is in motion, this is where the heart and knowing and divine intelligence reside, right? This is how we're able to access conscious competency, like learning while we're aware of learning, learning with awareness. However, when we are more unconsciously competent or having an unconscious competency state, those lower functionality states, um, it impedes on our ability to actually access right brain and left brain synergy, and you need this talking of both, right? This conferencing of both both sides of the brain so that you can have a holistic view, right? That literally is accessing your higher levels of consciousness. And this in layman's terms means the ability, right, to balance divine masculine and divine feminine. While there are seven functions circuits that the brain goes through to process information, many never make it past the fourth circuit. Shout out to Dr. Jewel Pookrum on her genius presentation on the seven circuits of the brain. Definitely worth the watch. If you're a lover of anatomy like me, it's absolutely delicious. But despite the achievements women have accomplished, there's still significant hurdles we have to face, right? To bring that oneness online. Um, these gender based rules, violence, unequal pay, limited access to education in some regions, you know, and as well as cultural stigmas, these things still continue to hinder the progress. But these challenges don't just affect women, they affect entire nations because when half of the population is held back, society as a whole cannot thrive. So, what can we do to break these barriers? Glad you asked. It starts with all of us. If we are not sound in mind and body, we can uphold reputable governments, communities, societies, nations. Without the mindset of oneness, we could not be able, right, to create nor enforce policies that protect and empower women. We must value the wellness of our girls just as much as we do our boys. And every one of us have a role to play by challenging stereotypes and questioning beliefs, exploring values to see what goes and what stays. And we're all tasked with developing a sense of identity, right? Makes us stronger. By doing this, we can all contribute to a collective power of divine feminine and divine masculine aspects. Balanced, right? Women need to advocate for unity and sisterhood and begin to share intuition with our families and communities so that we can harness this collective energy for positivity and equality in our lives. When women succeed, nations prosper. There are studies that show that living in oppression, constantly replaying the emotions of what once was, creates this spirit of lack and limitation and distract us with low level quarrels like you know, why does gender exist? When we can clearly see that the most basic explanation is that it provides us with a physical vehicle, right? A physical existence. So you can see operating from a balanced state, it leads to stronger economies, better health, better, you know, mindsets, more peaceful societies. So let's empower the women around us, right? Our mothers, our daughters, our sisters, our friends, and let's give them the tools, the respect, and the opportunities needed to help create a new beginning, a fresh start in the journey of personal exploration. This will give birth to a better world for all of us together in both of our divine feminine and divine masculine aspects. We can create nations that reflect the full potential of everyone, right? I'd like to thank you very much for joining me today. If this message resonates with you, please like, share, and subscribe to keep the conversation going. Let's build a world where women's roles are celebrated, valued, and amplified again. See you in the next episode. Odabo.